I've spent the last 14 years of my life collecting miniatures. From the beginning, I fell in love with the Warhammer 40k franchise and their Chaos Space Marines. They're bold, mean, loud, and aesthetically unapologetic. My goal is to have the world's largest Chaos Space Marine army.
This hobby is undeniably one of my biggest passions, and it's beyond important to me.
In fact, it's so important that I have a difficult time putting it into words. Every time I try, I become overwhelmed and struggle to adequately express my love for them. My friend Tak over at Play on Tabletop called me otaku, a Japanese word meaning someone who is obsessed with something so much so that it becomes a detriment to their social skills. But I digress. Some people are obsessed with other things like cars, sports, thrill-seeking, or even Tao. But for me,
collecting heaps of painted plastic miniatures depicting genetically modified superhumans that will stop at nothing from tearing apart all who oppose them. How does something like this even start?
Rewind back to 2007. Flip phones were still a thing. Steve Jobs was probably the most famous person in America. Apple introduced the first generation iPhone. England banned smoking in all enclosed workspaces. Top 10 baby names were Emma, Madison, Hannah, Emily, Elizabeth, Jacob, Michael, Ethan, Joshua, Daniel. And Spider-Man 3 was the top-grossing movie at the box office.
Anyways,
my childhood friend Matt calls me up and says,
"Hey Dave, do you want to play Lord of the Rings?"
I'm like, sure, why not? I like Lord of the Rings.
But then he says,
"Just so you don't freak out, it's unlike any other game you've played before. You've played Risk.
Yeah.
We've done role-playing games before.
Indeed. What's your point?
My point is, you've played a tabletop game before. A tabletop miniature war game before, to be precise. It's going to have more rules, there's going to be more things you need to do, there's going to be more things you need to remember, but there's going to be a lot more fun."
Let's do it!
Dave is definitely not exaggerating how this real conversation happened. 8888888888. Why do you want me to read this?
It's okay, thanks, never mind.
What else do I do?
Can't explain why, but I was attracted to the forces of darkness. The trolls, the goblins, the Balrog. Matt? He was the good guys.
Well, that's because I'm a good guy.
And you kicked my butt every single time we played.
No, I'm sure you won at least one game.
Not a single one. You liked using all the characters, Legolas, Aragorn, Gimli, and you were way too powerful for me to do anything about it.
Do you want some pepper with that salt?
In spite of this, I really liked it, and I had a lot of fun. That tells you something about a game when you can lose and still have fun.
MiniWarGamer Dave here from MiniWarGaming.com. This building is our Warhammer club.
Back then, still 2007, to help promote our online store, we started a local gaming club. Observing that White Dwarf, Games Workshop's premium miniatures magazine, included very little Lord of the Rings, we decided to collect minis of the most popular game, Warhammer 40,000. Matt took Tyranids. Tim had Space Marines. Dan had Orcs. Heck, he is an Orc. Joe had Orcs and Eldar. Basically all the factions were represented except for a few. One of those few being, you guessed it, Chaos Space Marines. The detail, the rebellious nature of the aesthetic, the spiky bits, the skulls, the legions, the colors, the gravitational pull towards something more, something all-encompassing.
Chaos!
It was chaos incarnate in its purest form. Anyway, I painted up my first miniature, and then my second.
And always remember, apply 2 thin coats and thin your paints.
I globbed the paint so thick that it would make Duncan Road squirm with pain.
With 2 thin coats?
They were painted horribly, but I didn't care. The thrill of starting a new thing and feeling accomplished in what I had done took over, and I wanted the world to see it. This was the start of an insatiable lust for more chaos. I even innocently/ignorantly called my wife the goddess of Slanesh.
I feel like you're using English words and I should know what you're saying, but I haven't got a clue what you're saying.
It wasn't until a few years later that I actually learned what it meant. The chaos god of lust, greed, excess, pain, pleasure, perfection, and
hedonism?
I learned there was more to chaos than just chaos. It had personalities, gods, if you will. To briefly describe them, here's my friend Baldermort.
Corn. Not this corn, but this corn, who happens to be Dave's favorite. He's the blood god, the chaos god of anger, violence, and hate. Corn was the first to awaken of the 4 gods of chaos. Tzeentch is the chaos god who represents the vitality and volatility of change. Tzeentch is known by an endless multitude of names, but the chief titles he bears are the Changer of Ways, the Master of Fortune, the Great Conspirator, and the Architect of Fate. Nurgle, the third to awaken of the four gods of chaos, represents morbidity, disease, and physical corruption. His titles include the Plague Father, Fly Lord, Great Corruptor, Plague Lord, Master of Pestilence, and Lord of Decay. And Slaanesh? Well, you already know Slaanesh. Was this the narrative voice you were hoping for, Dave?
Why, yes, it was. Thank you, Voldemort.
A pleasure as always.
I couldn't get models fast enough. I could only paint so much at a time. Plus, these miniatures are expensive. The current price of a box of 10 Chaos Space Marines is $60 USD. Plus, you need the Codex so you learn the rules. And if you want an actual army that is playable in a typical game of Warhammer 40k, you need more. A leader or HQ, elite choices, heavy support, transports for your infantry, an alternate HQ choice to lead your army to give you more options, plus some demon engines to round out the force. And that's just a taste. You need duplication if there's going to be any hope of actually being strategic and taking objectives and ultimately winning games. Demon Prince, Chaos Space Marines, Havocs, more transports for infantry, Mauler Fiend. Oh, by the way, this doesn't include paint or hobby supplies. The point is, it's not cheap. But that didn't stop me. Fast forward to summer 2011. Things were great. Our YouTube channel was growing. Sales on our web store were climbing. At this point, I had 6,000 points of Chaos Space Marines. Extremely poorly painted, as you can see, but I didn't care. My love for Chaos outweighed any sort of painter's shame I was feeling at the time. It's now autumn 2012. Games Workshop releases the Helldrake and the Mauler Fiend. I see Raptors and Mutilators. Were these units any good on the tabletop in an actual game of Warhammer 40k? Absolutely not. But that wasn't the point. Acquiring all these new models gave me a new lease on my collector's itch. I was well on my way to achieving demonhood when this happened.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and by now you may or may not have already heard about the new trade updates between Games Workshop and retailers in North America.
In short, Games Workshop changed their policies so much so that we could no longer sell their products on our web store online. This essentially shut down our business. We were forced to make a choice. Shut down the store and go out of business, or shut down the store and tell the community about our situation and hope for the best. We chose the latter. The community came to the rescue. The MiniWarGaming Vault, our paid membership site where people support us by gaining access to exclusive wargaming content, spiked in signups. This allowed us to continue making videos, and by extension, allowed me to continue growing my Chaos Space Marine army. Jump forward to winter 2018. My collection of Chaos has grown to 80,000 points. I organize it into various legions and patron gods. That brings us to today. Needless to say, I've significantly increased the total miniatures in my collection. And if I may be so bold, what once began as a single miniature has now exploded into thousands.
MiniWarGamer Dave here from MiniWarGaming.com, and this is my 144,000 point Chaos Space Marine army!
My vast collection includes Chaos Space Marines from the World Eaters Legion, everything from Lords of Skulls, a mighty Forge World Mastodon, and more Chaos Berserkers you can shake a skull at. My Death Guard trudged their way through the sea of pestilence and wave after wave of Plague Marines. Toxic bile spout from Plague Burst Crawlers and fetid bloat drones. Is there armor? Yes, there's armor. Copious amounts of it. Transports? Absolutely. The ground shakes as they transport the infantry across the battlefield. We have the Rubricae, the Thousand Suns, where all is dust, and the psychic powers of the warp run rampant. We have the Emperor's Children, painted in their various brightly colored color schemes. That's a lot of colors, but that's the way Slaanesh wants it. Let's not forget the Word Bearers, where one learns the primordial truth, and where chaos in the legions began. They're sons of Horus, who turn into the Black Legion eventually, both of which are represented in this army. There's wave after wave of demons, representing all of the four gods of chaos. I could look at my collection for hours and get lost in the sea of plastic. This is my Chaos collection in its current state in all its glory. But where do we go from here? Does this mean I'll no longer collect Chaos Space Marines? Not a chance. My love and passion will always be Chaos, and my goal is to still have the world's largest collection. At the end of the day, I'm still a fan of Warhammer 40k and the models produced by Games Workshop. When I was growing up, I always thought I'd be an actor. I even had a chance to dabble in this world in a small way, and I'm grateful for those experiences. Through Warhammer, I found my passion and my calling. Am I a wargamer? Yes. Am I an influencer? Well, I've been doing it for 14 years now. Perhaps I've influenced some people, but maybe not. That was never the purpose. This hobby has given me so much more than I could have imagined. The bonds I've formed and the friendships I've made along the way can only be described as miraculous. The community I've now contributed to and been a part of has gotten me through some very dark times throughout the years. And to my utter surprise, I've even received letters of others telling me the same thing. This certainly was not the original intent, but has been a byproduct of what I do. My way of life is wargaming. I live and breathe this stuff. I'm obsessed with it. It never turns off. I'm MiniWarGamer Dave, and this is Warhammer.